Hello, and welcome to Ex-Cult Ed, the podcast where I share my experiences, thoughts, and feelings after leaving the truth, otherwise known as the 2x2 way, the fellowship, the one true way. You get the picture. Now it's time to share my truth, in the hopes that it will be cathartic for me, and perhaps make you, dear listener, feel less alone if you've been through or are going through something similar. This is my story. Today I want to talk about the feeling that some of us lived with for years. Perhaps some of us are still living with it: cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance can be briefly described as when your actions and your beliefs, thoughts, and values don't line up. I experienced this from quite a young age when living in the cult. I'd say from as young as around 12. Actually, that's not true. I think I even felt it before that, but earlier, around when I felt the pressure to profess. Now, if you don't know what professing is, please listen to my first 4 episodes. But when I was around 8, I started feeling very uncomfortable because I believed that if I wasn't professing and something happened to me, I would go to hell. This made me really want to do something about it because I was super scared that I'd die and end up in everlasting torment. A huge thing for an 8-year-old to be considering, hey? Anyway, I ended up professing when I was about 10. But by around the age of 12, I really started questioning things. And as a lot of us have probably experienced, the more you question, the more you're told to have faith and pray about it, and the worse you feel about yourself and the fact that you even have questions. When I was around 13 or 14, I had realized how empty the testimonies were. Well, mine anyway, and my prayers too. Because of the format of the meetings and how there was so much pressure to pray at a certain time in a certain way, I often just had to rehearse 3 lines in my head and then stand up and say them when I got the courage. Often I was the second to last or last person to speak, and this meant I wasn't able to listen to other people's prayers, and I wasn't able to actually say a prayer that was really meaningful to me. I prayed the things that I thought everybody else would want me to say. And then there were the testimonies. That was always a stress for me. In fact, professing completely changed the lens through which I viewed my Bible. Instead of reading it to connect myself to God, I read it to try to come up with something to say in the meetings that would make everyone else happy. My revelations that I shared every week were less revelations and more crowd pleasers. It got to the point where reading my Bible was a chore, not a connecting, curious, and wayfinding activity. In fact, when I think back, the times that I got the most out of reading my Bible and felt the most connected to a higher power through the Bible were when I wasn't professing. So I would find myself going to meetings, sitting there and listening to other people saying the same old things and not really getting to the depth and truth and reality of what it means to be a person existing on this planet. It felt like we were all saying a lot of words that didn't mean anything. The irony was that we constantly talked about not simply paying lip service, but that's exactly what we were doing. I can only speak for myself, but I certainly did not feel connected with myself, with God, and with this beautiful planet that I believed He created. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this, but I can tell you how having to go and play a part, which I no longer believed, affected my mental health so much. It made me isolate myself from the friends around me because I was so tired of pretending to be and believe something that I no longer believed. But at the same time, I didn't and couldn't connect with anyone from the world because I didn't know how, and I thought the world was such a dangerous place. And honestly, I spent so many years living in this weird void between being in the cult and being in the world. Both of them were places that I wanted to be, but neither of them were places that were safe for me to be. So somehow, I just existed somewhere in the middle. I can safely tell you now, 7 years later, this has been a huge work in progress for me, and I am finally learning how to open myself up to being connected with myself, my environment, and with the people around me. I'm slowly learning to open myself up to spirituality in whatever form that takes. I know some people leave the cult and retain their Christianity and move to another church that fits with their ideals. My way of coping when I left was to completely block it all out as though it didn't exist. This means that, even until now, I have struggled to read a Bible. For me, the Bible was an instrument of oppression, and I haven't opened one to read it for myself in 7 years. I have asked others to read it to me, and I am considering checking out a Christian church when I'm ready, just to see how it makes me feel and to see if I can associate some positivity with it in my brain now. But what I do want to say is that dissonance is extremely hard to live with. What's the solution? Well, I wish I could tell you, but there's no easy fix. In part, I dealt with it with simply blocking things out for a long time, and I'm slowly opening myself up to letting that back in now. But I know just how hard it can be to walk away when your loved ones are in it, especially if that's partners, parents, and children. I also know just how hard it can be to walk away when you don't have that. I think that there's a lot of barriers in both situations. If you have a partner who is still fully into the cult, then leaving without them has massive implications. If you have that support with your partner and you can walk away together, it still has massive implications because of your families and your wider network. And if you're leaving on your own without support, that's another whole thing that I have personal experience with. I left with zero support and I had to face being alone in the world and get past a lot of things in order to finally come to a state where my actions and my thoughts and values are a little more closely aligning. This has been a 7-year journey so far for me, and it's still going. But I am finally starting to see the beauty in my own progress. I'm starting to appreciate just how far I've come and how much more in touch I am with myself and my own ability to do the things I set out to achieve. And it's crazy just how much when you open yourself up to things and opportunities, they find you. To be honest, leaving wasn't my first choice. I tried so hard to change my beliefs to match my actions, especially for the 6 years I spent married while in the cult. I tried to be the good wife and follower, and I tried to make my thoughts fit that mold, but I couldn't. Once you've seen things for what they are, it's pretty impossible to unsee them. Once you feel out of place and disconnected with it all, it's extremely hard, if not impossible, to reconnect and go back to that space of being a captive prisoner by choice, as we used to sing. I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes when I talk to people who are still fully living the values of the cult, it feels like they've got blinders on. And in fact, I know we've probably all heard somebody give a testimony about how they want to be like the horse with the blinders on so that God can lead them. It blows my mind that we used to think that was a good thing. Why would anyone in their right mind need to put on blinders? If the truth was so true, then wouldn't seeing everything and putting it out there in the light just show how true it really was? Why were we so scared to admit or acknowledge or delve into or critique anything about the way we lived and why we did things? Why were we so scared to change or question simple little things that could easily have been done differently? For example, why did we have to stand up in a mission to profess our faith before we could share a testimony? Why did we have to stand up one at a time and read a verse and share thoughts? Why couldn't it have been an informal conversation with coffee and snacks? Why did it have to always be so serious and solemn? Could we not have served God and had a little fun and smiled at the same time? We didn't have to feel like we were being made to carry our cross every time we met together, surely. Why was it not more of a positive thing? Why did we all get super dressed up in heels and fancy clothes and then stand there talking about how the world was so vain? Do you know that other people go to church in jeans? And we were the ones who weren't vain in our suits and ties and fancy clothes? How long did we spend getting ready for the meetings and missions every week, doing ourselves up to look good because image was a huge focus? What if we'd all just chucked on some jeans and a t-shirt and gone in casually and had a chat about God and what we'd struggled with and what we'd accomplished during the week? And why were we so quick to judge and gossip about each other if we stepped out of line, and so slow to tell someone that we loved and accepted them no matter what? How many times did someone step out of line and we who read about Jesus, the guy who sat with sinners, who said, "You who are without sin cast the first stone," how many times did we go to that person and say, "Hey, just want you to know that I have love for you and zero judgment, and if you ever need anything or a chat, I'm here"? How many times did we have compassion for someone else who seemed to be struggling? Our way of dealing with it when people struggled was to distance ourselves and talk about them as though they had some catching disease. Thinking about that now, that is one thing that actually disgusts me about the cult. And I know disgust is a strong word, but the lack of compassion, when I have always valued kindness and compassion, and most people would say they do too, but it is not shown at all. Image is the number one value and not one that I could uphold. Putting out these episodes was a huge and scary thing for me because it meant that I couldn't just slip away into anonymity. it meant that people who knew me might listen and they might judge me as some bitter, broken person. But I have realized that no matter how broken I am, I have to live my own truth and the truth that I am convicted of. And if I'm afraid to speak my own truth, then what kind of life am I living? I am not a captive prisoner by choice. I choose where I go, what I wear, how I talk, who I talk to, what I eat and drink, who I date, even whether or not I will get remarried. And I make all these choices based on my own values, not the ones told to me by some other entity. I still have a long way to go to get my values and actions to be completely aligned, but I can say I've experienced what it feels like to be on that journey, and it is beautiful. If you're someone who's experiencing the cognitive dissonance and you feel you can't change the situation, I'd say the biggest thing that I can think of that could help you is to talk to someone who understands. There are a few groups out there that you can search up and join where there's people who are going through the same sorts of emotions and feelings. Even if you can't change the situation you're in right now, know that you're not alone. I've been there, many of us ex-2x2ers have been there, and there are so many still stuck there. It's a hard place to be in, and only you know what's best for you and your family and your situation. Thanks for listening today, and if nothing else, I just want to share with you how much connecting with nature has helped me. It won't work for everybody, and I used to think all that stuff was hippy-dippy and airy-fairy. But now, whenever I'm feeling disconnected or uncomfortable, or I start to panic and feel anxious, I find that just going outside, trusting in myself and the universe or God or the spirit or spirituality or connectivity, whatever you want to label it, just going outside and allowing yourself to simply be, to just be present, to be the human that you are, the person that you are, the being, the soul, allowing yourself to just be and to just trust. Trust that you are okay, that things will be okay, and that whatever happens is going to be part of your experience, and that will be okay. Sometimes I'll just go outside to clear my mind and take in what's going on around me in the present. The sky, the ocean, the wind, the birds, what it feels like, what it sounds like. Sometimes I'll use instrumental music to immerse myself and switch off the thoughts. And that has helped me so much to find some grounding within myself. Because if you can't change your environment, you can always work on yourself. Nobody has the right to tell you how to think and how to feel except you. I wish that I had learned these things and how to connect with myself a lot earlier in life. I would have spent so many years feeling less anxious and less depressed. And it's something that I'm still learning. But I hope that those of you who are still in that environment and who are wanting to get out can find some comfort within yourself, knowing that you are not alone and that you can connect with this beautiful planet and other beautiful souls, and most importantly, your beautiful self. And nobody can stop you from doing that. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate you. If you'd like to reach out, ask any questions, share your story, say whatever you need to say, email me at exculted@gmail.com. That's exculted@gmail.com. This episode is edited by Little Old Me. The music is created by Soul Prod Music. Always remember, you can walk your own way, speak your own truth, and live your own life. Bye!